Think of one or two people in the LGBT community. It can be an actor, a singer, any kind of celebrity. Who are they? What do they look like? How do they present themselves? We tend to use people in the media and the media that is presented to us to make assumptions and make images about what different people, different groups look like and how they act and how they present themselves. This is one of many ways of how stereotypes can form. I'm here to talk about how these stereotypes and images of what a person of the LGBT community look like and how that can affect LGBT teens who are trying to figure themselves out and accept their sexualities. Stereotypes, there are some truth to them, but it does not erase the stigma around them. There is still a negative connotation around these stereotypes. It can make it hard for LGBT teens to accept themselves or stick to a label, a sexuality. In my experiences, I didn't really know what the LGBT community was or what it was like until I was old enough to get out on the internet and learn from social media. And it was maybe because I was relatively sheltered, or that whenever it was brought up, it was followed by the classic, gay means happy. The first few gay characters I had ever seen in the media fit a lot of common stereotypes, typically ones that had a lot of stigma to them. These stereotypes put images of what the LGBT community should look like in kids' minds, and it can be right at the forefront of it. These stereotypes can make these kids unable to accept themselves. For me, in my personal experiences, it can be more related to the stages of grief, with acceptance being the fifth and final stage of it. The first stage of grief is denial. It can be seen as when you figure out what sexualities are and what the community is back in maybe middle school or high school, and it can last all the way to early to mid-adulthood. The next stage of grief is anger. It can be seen as an anger directed inwards or at a belief that has been pushed onto somebody from a young age, whether it be this feeling of wrongness because you're supposed to like a different gender, or that all the media presented to us when we were younger was classic straight relationships. The third stage of grief is bargaining. It can be seen as somebody dating someone of the opposite gender so that people around them accept it because it's more acceptable to their family, their friends, and the people around them. They are trying to bargain whether their happiness will come from the validation of others or their own fulfillment in their relationships. The fourth stage of grief is depression. It can be seen as the aftermath of the fighting with yourself for where your happiness will come from, whether it comes from others around you or yourself. You can stop and say, everyone else around me is happy, so it makes me feel good because they're happy for me. Whereas you may be happier in a different relationship where you're not getting that same validation from people around you because they may not accept you. This is why representation is important. So I'm guessing when I asked you to picture somebody of the LGBT community earlier, you had someone in mind, a person or two, but you changed it so that you picked a person that was less stereotypical, less common. So that didn't fit as many stereotypes. There is a lot more representation in the media nowadays, and there are many more images of what an LGBT person can look like. So it can create this, there are stereotypes and there's non-stereotypical people. And there is that representation, there is so much more for a very wide array of ages, except for children's media. There is still a lack of representation in children's media, which is not creating the proper foundation now that our children will need to create a more acceptable future, a more accepting future. It all starts with the children. It started when I was a child. It started when people around me were children. Acceptance starts young, but it also starts with the older people who are raising these young people. Nobody should have to go through this stage of grief to accept themselves. Children should be able to say, maybe I do like a woman. A boy should be able to say, maybe I do like a man, and not have to go through grief to accept themselves. Thank you. Thank you.